I gotta look at the history of this whole gavel thing. I'm not totally sure why we did it, but anyway. So thank you for joining. We have Malcolm Brown online. Is there anybody else online? And Malcolm, I just want to confirm you can hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yep. Sounds good.
Nobody
All right.
else on Zoom yet?
Nobody else on Zoom. Okay, thank you. One of our first agenda items is just to acknowledge absent members. So Charlie emailed me just that he's not able to make it tonight. I think you were mentioning somebody else wasn't able to.
You got one.
Oh, Malcolm, so, okay. So, we do need a minutes taker. So I think, was it, Andrew, Andrew, right? I'm terrible at names, so I'm trying.
Yeah. No, well, minutes is great for learning names, but I'll do it again.
Do you mind?
No, I don't. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and you sent out the minutes for June's meeting.
Yeah, it's like the
yesterday.
longer there is to do a task, the longer it takes me. So anyway, it'll be.
You were very good at the minutes.
well. No, I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
And maybe we can just tee up so we're gonna try to rotate that responsibility a bit. So if there's an opportunity.
I will say I did try to do ChatGPT. It did not work. So it was really most efficient just to do it by me. But,
And then we also take a minute to identify guest members, but because Erin, you're going to be speaking later, I can kind of do that all at once later, if that's okay. All right, so that's kind of the start. And then for bullet 2, approval of minutes. So Andrew, anything you wanted to say about the minutes that you sent out, or did folks have a chance to read them? They were via Dropbox, right?
yeah, the Dropbox link.
Yep.
No comments.
I read through them. I was not at the June meeting, so it was good to kind of read through them. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Seconded.
All right. On to administrative items.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Of the motion.
I said seconded, so you say
Oh.
all in favor. Right?
Oh, all in favor? Sorry. Aye. There is
Start
a
with
procedure.
Malcolm. Yeah, we have to do it roll call if you want to.
Right, so
but-
sorry. So procedurally, right, so Malcolm, you gotta, so all in favor, just say your name, I guess?
Aye.
Malcolm. And do we have to go all the way around, right?
Yes.
Mike
Yeah.
Letterman, aye.
Steve Holmgren, aye.
Matt Davis, aye.
Aye.
Paul Rasmussen, abstain.
Yeah, I'm not a voting member, so.
Okay.
Andrew Coppins, aye.
Stephen Fellows, I'm going to abstain since I was not a member then.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. And by the way, you can tell I'm still kind of new at this role, so appreciate all the help. Administrative items, we're going to open floor for guests, which Erin, again, you're going to have some time to speak, so I don't see any other guests or guests online. Some of this, oh wait, sorry, I'm looking at the June. I have the wrong, oh, I have your minutes up. Sorry, bear with me 1 second here. No, I got it here. All right. All right, and then it comes to Erin. So Erin, if you wouldn't mind, join us at the table here. Erin will have a chance to introduce herself, but she sent an email to the whole committee at one point, then we kind of carved it off just to have a little bit more of a discussion. And it sounds like a good opportunity. And yeah, you're here to kind of talk about that opportunity. So please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Erin Hale, just a little bit of background. I know some of you. I have lived in Durham since 2011, and I work at the university. So I run the sustainability dual major program there, and that I teach is the capstone class for graduating seniors with the sustainability dual major. And in this capstone class, the focus is on students participating in an action research project to address a community identified sustainability need or problem. And so I'm here tonight because good news is our program is growing, and I'm just doing more outreach to local community groups and partners to see if you have any thoughts or ideas about how students might be able to support the work that you're doing here for the town. I've worked with other town groups. I know Paul and Steve actually have been at the IMAC committee meetings that I've been to. I was on the Conservation Commission for several years and have stepped back from that role, but I'm still very involved, and I'm working with a Veronique, the landowner stewardship coordinator, on a project for this fall for the Conservation Commission as well. And it's just a beautiful opportunity to connect students to what's going on in town and provide them with the experience of working with town leaders and town volunteers on sustainability challenges. So I'm really just here to sort of hear from you all. I'd be happy to provide some more details about what we're looking for those of you who might not have had a chance to look at the RFP. And also the other thing I'll say is that there's no pressure to come up with a project right now. Matt, you've been a wonderful advisor to our students over the years, and you know, I'm also talking to folks on campus as well and a lot of other members. So this is really just kind of some initial outreach. I know your committee's worked with some of our students in the past as well, like one of the sustainability fellows. I believe Sophie is, have you been working closely with Sophie this last year to update the climate action plan? So Sophie was one of my students, graduated just last year? I can't remember. Anyway. So that's just a brief though. If you have any questions, happy to answer them. If you have thoughts or ideas, happy to discuss.
So are these one semester, or are the students working over the course of the year?
Great question. Yeah, so right now the capstone class as envisioned is just one semester long. So it's groups of 3 to 4 students, generally from different departments and majors across campus. So that's one of the really unique that we have students from almost every different major across campus. And part of what we do in this course is we bring engineers and biologists or ecologists all together to have that experience of working on an interdisciplinary project. Yeah.
And they're doing this for credit, not for pay?
Not for pay, it's for credit. So, yeah, this is not like the summer fellowship that Sophie's a part of, where they're actually, working 40 hours a week. So this is students, I would say, collectively working about 20 to 25 hours a week on a project over the course of the semester. And they, for the class, it's also a writing intensive class, so they have to write a sort of a formal research paper as part of the project that they're doing for me. And then in addition to that, depending on their project and relationship with their partner, they're also creating other project deliverables. So it could be putting on a workshop, it could be doing some other kind of literature review or research for a group, it could be collecting data, doing interviews or a survey or something.
Just a question.
Yes.
So is this like a group project with 3 or 4 students,
Yes.
or 3 or 4 projects? No.
No.
It's a group.
Yeah, a group project. So, for example, last spring I had 35 students in my class, which is quite big for a capstone class, which is why now I'll have a fall and a semester. But we had 8 different projects, so students were divided into 8 different groups. This fall I've got 13 students, so we'll probably have about 4 different projects this fall.
And looking at the past, maybe you could share a little bit about
Sure.
past projects. Just looking at the RFP, it sounds like you've worked with Kittery,
Yes.
a couple other ones. Maybe you could just describe,
Yeah.
pick one or
okay.
two that
So,
or how did it work? So you have a collection of students.
Yeah.
What was on the responsibility of the host?
Great. Yes, great question. So that's something that we've worked to really define and develop sort of the roles and responsibilities of the different partners. So one of the things that makes this class, I think, really unique is not only are we working, asking students to work with these community partners, but I spend a lot of time developing those relationships so that once the semester starts, the project is something that, again, is identified already by the community. It's not students just sort of thinking, oh, I think it'd be cool to look at this or do this. This is something that other folks have said this we really need or would like to do. And then they work really closely with a mentor from the partner organization or for somebody on campus. And that mentor meets with the students once a week, I would say, for about an hour to just provide guidance, make sure they're on the right track. But as the instructor, I also provide a lot of scaffolding throughout the class to make sure that they are learning skills of project management, keeping up with deadlines. They create a work plan in conjunction with their partner organization and work together to kind of make sure they're meeting those deadlines so that they can really deliver at the end of the semester. And one of the things that we really rely on our mentors to do is to work with the students to figure out what are some really realistic, feasible goals that students can accomplish given their skill set, given the time over the course of that project. And we've certainly worked with groups over different semesters. So even though each student group will only take the class for one semester, sometimes we work with a partner over several semesters to help to continue project
Like
work.
breaking in phases. Gotcha.
Yes. So, and you asked for, and I know the
Yeah,
gentleman
Malcolm's, yeah.
online has a question too.
Go ahead, Malcolm.
Okay, thank you. The idea I have, I picked around, I've mentioned this, I think, in the meeting once or twice, is that this came up with us wondering about the rate of adoption of solar paneling. I think that was what it was. And it made me wonder whether it would be useful to conduct a survey, either annually, biannually, or just one time, to understand the rate of people adopting things like solar paneling and other environmentally friendly technologies. It also might be a way of understanding what is in people's way. Is it purely financial, or what are the issues around bringing this technology into people's homes? Just so we can see kind of where the pain points are, maybe address them, or just understand the rate at which Durham is moving in these directions. So my question would be, would that be something that would be appropriate for this context?
Yes, definitely. So I think if that's part of something that your committee here is trying to understand, and this goes back to your question about what were some, we worked with the Durham Ag Commission last spring, and they had a survey for residents about their interest in community gardening and sort of cooperative food production in town. So in that case, they worked, Alberto Manolo had a lot of design experience, so he and the team had actually developed, I think, the list of questions even before the students came on. But we had a couple of students who were really familiar with R on that team, and so they were able to help distribute the survey and analyze the results and then come up with a report for them. So that certainly could be a project.
So I have possibly one for
Okay.
you. Just let me know if it's kind of too large. There's been some recent noises about trying to introduce insect-friendly lighting into our zoning ordinance and site
Interesting.
plan regulations.
Okay.
And yeah, my concern is there needs to be a balance based on the task of the lighting,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't want to necessarily put insect-friendly lighting at a crosswalk where it's more important for the car to see the person in the road.
Right.
And what we, from a board's perspective, looking at all the possible tasks and stuff, it just seems like a pretty big job for one person to try to do,
Yeah.
which typically is what happens. But would this be the type of thing where they could go out, do literature reviews, come out with a list of various tasks that we see around, everything from, driveway and front door of your residence to what happens downtown, and then provide a report at the end?
Yes, yes. And again, I think that's a question of sort of where we probably have to work on like the actual scope, because it seems like, as you mentioned, it might be too big, just getting students sort of up to speed on what insect-friendly lighting is and what zoning, just what a zoning board is and what zoning is in general, right? Some of that is going to be really new to students.
I can
Yeah.
even keep the zoning part out of it and just say based on
Insect.
tasks around town,
Yeah.
uses around town,
Yeah, what
which
would
makes
be?
it easier. I mean,
Yes.
reach out to me.
Yeah.
Maybe we can talk about
Yeah,
this.
yeah, I think that's a great one. And again, that's an example of, that would be a cool one because that would involve students, I think, really just learning about town planning and organization and in a really detailed way. But literature reviews, even just looking at like what have other towns done as far as insect-friendly lighting, that could be another avenue that students could take, or maybe that would be the initial focus would be a literature review around that, and then the next step would be, okay, what does that mean for here in Durham?
So
Yeah, that's great.
I'm sorry. So I think the decision before us, because I think it's a lot of good ideas. I saw your deadline for the fall anyway is August 15th.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why I was hoping you were able to come in today, so we could talk about it, decide amongst ourselves, is this sounds like a promising engagement between the university and the town. I don't know if we'll know of the project tonight.
Sure.
So just trying to figure out like how we don't have another meeting until after the 15th. So just trying to figure out what we want to try to do. Period. And if we do want to try to do it, do we want to try to do it for the fall? In which case we need to probably get a couple people that would be willing to brainstorm, Paul, your idea and others, like just kind of, here's a succinct RFP submission, right?
And the RFP, that it's not a huge deal. It really is just a couple sentences here and there, but it will take you guys sort of thinking a little bit more specifically about objectives and things. Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Just one more question on, you mentioned a few things, but are there prerequisite courses that students like, other than just idiosyncratically what students might come in with skills? Are there like, oh yeah, all this students in this course have taken X course, and so they're likely to have skills?
Yeah, so all of the students have taken just the intro to sustainability class.
Okay.
And then they've taken what's called sustainability in action. There's only 3 required classes that all of our dual majors need to take. So one, sustainability in action is really more of a leadership, kind of sustainability leadership class, and then this is the applied project-based class. So it really varies what students are coming in with, and that's part of, so this is another caveat that I will just say, is that I do like to give students choices. So part of what I'm doing is trying to collect a lot of ideas, and then depending on the makeup of the students who are taking the class each semester, some of them will really gravitate towards some of the projects. Some of them will have GIS experience. Some of them will be engineers, and some of them will have finance experience and really want to be getting into the nitty-gritty of economic analyses. On what skills they're coming in with and what their interests are, they choose different projects. So even if you guys come up with a great idea for the fall, I can't guarantee you that with the mix of the student that we're going to have, that they're going to jump on it. But
And we want to make a project that looks attractive. That would be fun for
well,
us
that's
to do.
that's the other thing, is that sometimes there's a little bit of like, I've worked with some organizations who submitted the same project over and over again, and it never gets. I'm really sorry, and maybe we can kind of rethink how we're sort of presenting this
ChatGPT
project.
can help us with that.
I don't know. Yeah, but it really mostly depends on just their background and what they're interested in. I think all the projects are great and interesting.
So Malcolm, I see your hand up. Was there another question too?
Yeah, I just want to see, Aaron, if I'm understanding this correctly.
Yeah.
It sounds like what we should do is maybe propose several projects, almost like a mini menu of things, because there's no way of predicting just what skill set this set of students will have, right?
Yes.
And then let on your side sort of pick which one that they think is most interested in them and matches their skill set.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that for this fall, because it's a much smaller class, and I already have 3 projects identified, we're looking for one more project right now for the fall.
For fall, okay.
So again, part of this, but I am always looking for projects, and we plan them out in the fall for the semester. So it's not too early to be thinking about what projects you might want to have students work on in the spring as well. But certainly, if you guys want to do some initial brainstorming and then run a few ideas by me, I might say, oh yeah, this one I'm sure students would be really excited about, or I know we'll have some students who will have that skill set, and I might let you know these other projects might be hard to generate the same kind of interest for. So if you wanted to do that, just run a list by me first before you work on the actual RFP. Happy to do that as well.
Okay, so let me, or maybe somebody wants to make a motion or proposal, but I mean, it sounds like a good engagement, whether we can do it for the fall and pull it off or in the spring. It sounds like we have some flexibility there. I mean,
Yeah, no pressure to do it for the fall.
so
Sure.
thoughts, like, is this something that the committee, so the proposal would be, or the motion would be, like, let's engage Erin and her team and submit a project, either, and again, a small group can brainstorm and decide if we can align on something for the fall, or we can start working on it for the spring. That's part of what I like about this is, like, there's something near term, but if we don't get to it, it could be the spring.
Right, or next year. I mean, that's sort
Yeah.
of what I'm just trying to build relationships
Yeah.
with all kinds of groups. So, yeah.
Well, I guess one other thing occurred to me, and I'm not sure if this fits or not, but, we had a presentation on, from some group at UNHN on sustainability about the police car EV transition, right?
Yep.
A year or two ago, something. And they did a nice job going through. I think a revisiting of that, a lot of things have changed, more things are available.
Yeah.
We have a new high-speed charger station in Dover,
Yep.
So I don't know if that's something, some ground has already been plowed there, but, no action, I don't think, was really taken as a result of that.
Yeah.
So I would be willing to help work on
that project.
on that project if people thought that was something.
That's great.
Why don't we do this first? Like, and sorry, Mike, were you gonna add something too?
Well, when you get to soliciting the other day, just throw out one as a reminder from something in the past, but.
Well, I think first, like, do we agree that this is a good idea? And like, I just want to get kind of consensus or people.
I think so.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's a good idea, only if you can come up with some good products.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the, okay, if we think this is a good idea, then can we coalesce and brainstorm some projects?
I'd like to brainstorm some ideas.
Yeah.
But, I just thought of a few, but.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like, oh, Malcolm, go for it. Sorry, I see your hand up.
Oh yeah, no, I'm willing to join a brainstorming session in terms of seeing what we could come up with.
Okay, so I think, all right, so we agree that it's a good idea, so then the next step is, what do we come up with? And can we do it by the 15th for the fall, or do we just create a list for, so can we have,
November 1 is the other date.
right, November 1 is the other date, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's just sort of a
Guidelines.
rough date so that I can make sure to get projects organized for the spring semester. That's not, it's just, you're just turning it into me. So, if you need a little extra time, that's okay.
No, we need deadlines.
You need deadline, yeah, deadlines are
This
good.
group works better with deadlines, yeah. So then, do we have like 2 or 3 people, something less than quorum? I'm looking at Mike who helps us with the rules. It's like less than 3, I think, can get together. and-
Well, less than 4, you got like 10 now, so I think 4 probably the.
4 would be the right number.
Workable number.
4, okay, so 3, let's start with 3. Is there some people that would like to get together and brainstorm? We don't have to necessarily do it here. If we have time in the meeting, we can start that discussion, but Steve, were you?
I understood, yes.
Okay, anybody else?
I'd be happy to do it.
Hi, this is Malcolm. I said I'm willing to join.
Okay, great. Andrew, did you grab those names?
Yeah, who was that again? Malcolm?
Malcolm, Steve, and Matt, right? Did I get that right? I'm
That's-
terrible at names. Okay. Out of curiosity, Aaron, are your students the one that sometimes show up here? Sometimes we just get, and Matt, I don't know if these are your students, but sometimes we just get students in the crowd that kind of like listen into the
Oh,
meeting.
those are planning students
Oh, okay.
or civic students who are
Okay.
required to attend.
Yeah,
I get them all the time from planning board.
Gotcha.
And future planners need to see what kind of potentially getting into.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and there is some overlap. We have a lot of students who are sustainability dual majors and community planning. And in the instructor who taught that sustainability in action class, it was a requirement to come to a town meeting. I don't think the person who's been teaching it recently, she hasn't been requiring that. But,
Gotcha.
But yeah, so you may have seen them before.
And just to close this out, and that we have 5 goals as a committee. One is the overarching, like, support climate action plan of Durham. But just as we think about projects, right, they would align to provide education for the town on the sources of renewable energy. So kind of like the somebody was mentioning the survey, right? That would fit into there. Improve energy efficiency and reduce carbon footprint of built environment, right? So both the residential and commercial environments. Support EV ownership, which is actually going to be our next topic, is part of the EV ordinance. There you go. So built environment, EV support, education, and then just community outreach and education in support of the climate action goals. So those are kind of our committee goals.
That's great.
That could
Yeah.
potentially align to
Okay.
projects that
Wonderful.
your students.
Yeah, and one other thing that I would just mention is that, you know, a lot of groups, when I approach them, they're like, oh great, a student group, they can do a social media campaign for us, or they can do the outreach or this or that, because they can reach the young people. And that's true, and we definitely have done projects like that. But I think a lot of students are really interested in doing some real analyses, and so that is one thing just to consider as you're thinking about projects, is maybe there's an outreach component, be some sort of economic or engineering or other kind of analyses or literature review as part of it, but there needs to be some sort of research component too.
So, I've worked with some of these groups as a faculty mentor, but not officially a faculty, but as a resource.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that's one of the benefits of this program, is that the students have access to faculty who are subject matter experts.
Yes, yes.
And so is there a mechanism in place where either they seek them out or you do some matchmaking to get them involved?
I think both. So I think like you've been, probably Matt LaRue has reached out to you, or sometimes the students have reached out to you directly. I'm certainly there as a support to help connect students to different resources, and then our mentors also help to connect students. So yes, it's not all on the mentor. I mean, that's definitely part of what we're hoping that students do, is get out into the community, talk to different faculty members, find out from other folks who can provide that real world guidance as well.
Gotcha. Mike, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to toss out an idea of, for a lot of new board members that weren't around, but one of our former board members, Emily, back at one point was looking at a project, and we're talking a lot with Matt about the idea of, you know, could there be someone who would act as a facilitator for residents of the town in terms of doing energy improvement retrofits. There was a lot of discussion around the issue of, is it economically feasible? Where would the money come from? Would it somehow pay for itself in some way? Could you get the residents to pay a small fee, but it would be well below market, so it would be an incentive, stuff like that. But there was a lot of open questions about it. It was one of the things that I recall that I thought a lot of us thought was a cool idea. It just never got to fruition for a lot of reasons, but that might be something where a group of students, 20 hours a week, could do a deep dive, see what else has been done in the past elsewhere, and do some more economic analysis, maybe some mini surveys to find out what's out there for, utilities in residences. We don't really know what the real story is on that.
Right.
So it can involve multiple different things, and it might then give the town a greater confidence maybe to pursue something. Emily had pursued a grant for that at one point and didn't get it, but it was...
Right, and our hypothesis behind that, right, I think, was that like there's all this federal at the time, there was all this federal programs and other programs, and one of the hurdles was connecting residents with like, how do you actually do it? How do you apply? How do you get it? So the idea was, if we had a docent or an assistant, like somebody doing that work, helping to make that connection, like the town would benefit and the residents would benefit.
But in these times, maybe it's not about the incentives, maybe it's just about what's the economic realities and how residents would be able to see where the payback is to them, and they'd have a greater confidence in terms of saying, yeah, if I do this, I get payback in 9 years or 7 years or whatever. But,
right.
Even that list that Charlie sent around for last meeting that had sort of low, medium, and high, kind of cost options. I mean, I can't remember what exactly the item. Low is your lawnmower needs to be replaced with a battery powered. High is obviously like new insulation and all that. We talked last time about it'd be nice if model house in Durham. Okay, let's take the typical single resident, single family house, and let's say, okay, for each of these, what would the cost be for this? What would the cost be for this? Then somebody can say, I have 1,000 more square feet. Obviously, it's going to be a little, but just like taking that and putting some numbers to it.
Yeah.
good.
That's great, yeah. And that sort of fits in with an initial idea, which was just trying to understand people's willingness to maybe participate in some new energy technologies. You know, what might be the barriers to solar?
Yep.
If you can't afford solar, there are these other kinds of things that maybe you can do and you can work on step by step. So, yeah, lots of cool ideas here.
Okay, Malcolm, last question, go for it.
Okay, quick question. I mean, sorry, Aaron, this is a delicate question, and please don't take me the wrong way, but who directs and oversees the work of these students? And then who reviews what they come up with make sure it's sound?
So that is partly the role of the mentor and the community partner. So you will be able to review the student drafts and the work throughout. I will also be reviewing student work, but again, I don't necessarily have expertise in the projects that the students are working on, so I'm really relying on other faculty members and our community and faculty mentors and advisors to really help with that. So I think, you know, it is still a student project. They're not being paid as consultants, so I think that is something that, you know, we rely on to kind of make sure that that what they say and the results they come up with track with what we understand as well. So I guess no, I can't guarantee that everything that they create is going to be perfect. But I think that's partly, you know, my role and the role of the mentor comes in when we really try to be really realistic about what the students can accomplish and what maybe they aren't, you know, able to accomplish given the specific skill set of the group and given sort of the other folks that are involved in the team.
Excellent. Yep.
So, yeah.
So your mileage may vary, but you need, you know, we gotta check the work, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think,
Can't be any worse than ChatGPT.
I think that's,
so.
yeah. I wouldn't necessarily use their plans to build a bridge.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay, so Aaron, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate it. You're welcome to
Great.
stay. If you want to hear us talk about EV ordinances and other things, we have, Andrew, right, we have the small team of 4. I think that we can kind of convene, and go ahead.
No, I was just going to say thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here and your willingness, students. So I'll
Yeah,
look forward to hearing back. Feel free to reach out via email again if you just have some ideas that you'd like to chat about as well. And I'll let you get on the committee. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
so much, Aaron.
Thank you.
Related, but a different audience than Aaron's, you know, just teeing up, this isn't on the agenda, but it's on the agenda for September. Matthew Van Legge, I think, if I'm saying it right, from Mohammed, right? Sent an email saying, hey, if folks, as part of outreach of this community, if folks want to join some 4th grade classes and talk about energy and sustainability, there'd be some interest. So we're going to try to have a phone call with him in the next week or 2 to understand better, and then he will come in September. So that's just it's coming. Awesome. Any closing comments on Aaron's presentation or like one of the next topic?
I will say, one of the things that the council has been talking about in great depth is those community partnerships, especially with UNH and especially with the headlines recently with UNH and the way UNH has been kind of thrown under the bus at the state level, showing that Durham and the town council and that especially the energy committee here is willing to work with the university during such difficult times, I guess you could say, is a really good message to send forth.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to see that the commission and the committee here is going to be working tight with them. So,
Yeah, that's great.
yeah.
Malcolm?
Just a quick question. Who is going to convene the PASIAS 4 or 3? How is that going to get going?
Great question. We're looking, so who wants to take the lead on it? It's really the question. I mean, Malcolm, do you mind doing that?
No, I don't. If someone can send me, I don't know if I have actually the email addresses of all the members on the committee. I may have overlooked it, but if I can just get their emails, and I'm happy to shoot something out, and we can organize a time to brainstorm.
That'd be great.
Did they update it yet
Um,
on the website? Last time I checked the
Emails out
website,
there?
I was still
Does-
listed
does
as
that have
chair,
it?
so I'm not sure all the emails got updated.
I don't think our
Well,
emails
I emailed everybody on a few days ago with the EV
Yes,
ordinance,
you
so it's on
did.
that list.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah, so if
Look,
you have,
look at the sent list to who
Make sure
received
you
it.
use his list, because I did get that.
Yeah,
Everything I've received so far was from.
Malcolm, that was the email from Michael Lehrman about the EV ordinance that he sent about 48 hours ago. He spelled out everyone on that list.
Oh, you did?
separately.
Okay, okay. Then just send me the, so make sure I get the names right, because someone just quickly send me the names of the people who put their hands up, so,
Andrew, do you mind doing that?
Yeah, I'll send that to you right away.
thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, so that's, unless, I mean, just open floor quickly under administrative items that didn't make the agenda, but you want to bring up quickly? Yes, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I will be leaving the committee and just wanted to thank those that have been on the committee for a while. It's been an enjoyable session. The newer folks haven't really got to know that well, but yeah, just too many fingers and too many pies, I think, at this point, and just feel a little like I need to pull back a little bit.
Yeah, you've been a great help to the committee, and like this EV ordinance is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, before you leave, let's get it over the line here tonight. That's the
Yeah,
next,
well,
that's the next
it's on the
topic.
agenda. Yeah, I'm not leaving right now. This minute.
And you did minutes for like my whole chaotic tenure, so thank you for that.
So we really appreciate you being on committee, and you know, it takes
Yeah.
time, and this is a voluntary thing, so I appreciate everybody's time on here. So, yeah.
Well, you know, Charles took his sabbatical and came back.
That's right. Yeah,
Everyone's allowed to circle back later on.
Yes, please.
I was wondering, do we have a logo and do we need one?
Durham Energy Committee logo. We have. Well, we've been using what I've seen being used. Oh wait, do you? Was that a tee up for?
Well,
The sustainability logo, or do you have your own?
There's a sustainability
There.
Durham.
Wait. Is that,
no, this is CPCNH.
Community power, yeah.
There was one.
somewhere in here,
Back into
but
the
there's like
box.
15 in there.
There was one developed by a community member, right? Which I think, who just mentioned it a second ago? It's not a Durham Energy Committee specific one, but it's ones that we've kind of put on our posters and other things. Let me see if I can find it.
I know there's a sustainability Durham one,
It might have been that one.
but
might have been that, yeah.
I was
I think
wondering
we've
if you
used
want
that one a
to
bit.
more precisely mark our contribution somehow.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I don't. Go ahead, Mom.
This is Malcolm, sorry, this is meant somewhat as a jocular suggestion, but how about just taking that illustration in the town seal and adding some solar panels in? Sorry, that was
Solar
just
panels in the
mostly meant in jest.
I can't find the sustainability one right offhand here, but we have been using that one. But it is a more generalized sustainability versus the Durham Energy Committee.
Would you like me to try to generate one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and maybe you can bring it in September, and we can talk about it some more. I mean, any open discussion on that, folks?
I think it's definitely a wise approach. I know that the Human Rights Commission itself is looking into a logo, knowing that there are resources that are going to be given out to the community based on that one commission.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the development of a logo for each committee and commission is probably a good start on that kind of distribution. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you for volunteering for that.
appreciate that.
Sure. Well, see what I come up with first.
Maybe your logo can
I have a
motivate the rest of the committees.
Minor
and
report from the
commissions
planning
around
board.
Oh yes, please.
Yeah.
So we did have a new large project come in. It's for Riverwoods. There's actually somebody left a copy of their thing over here on the table. If you want to grab it and see what it, or look through it. And they're adding three new buildings over on Stone Quarry Drive. So I just wanted to let you know that they've submitted, they'll be doing their initial presentation to the planning board at our next meeting. And that will be, like I said, I just want you guys to know so that you can get ready to do whatever it is you'd like to do with these larger projects.
Well, so that's a good tee up, because what we're talking about next, and we can pass this around so everybody can see it, but what we're talking about next is the EV ordinance I've been working on, specifically applying to residential is often, is out of scope. But we had rewritten the EV ordinance recently. We've modified it slightly. Actually, let me take a step back. We were supposed to present in July. We met as a smaller group, and today there's probably some small revisions we can make given the current and other things. And we said, okay, let's try to make this a little bit simpler. So we met, we made those revisions, but we said, hey, we want to make sure that we show it to this committee before we go forward. So we pushed the July town council meeting. Where's the town council meeting? Planning board. Okay. It's with you. Okay, I'm sorry. To September. Yeah. So that we can have this meeting, right? And then we can kind of plan up for it. So with that and with the news that you just shared, maybe we could open the EV discussion, the EV ordinance discussion, and see what modifications we've made there. Does that sound okay?
Can I ask a question first? The climate action plan says a certain percentage of buildings must be fully electrified by a certain year. Is there anything we can do to encourage Riverwoods to electrify their new construction? I know we don't have any power to do it, but I mean, can we do anything to influence them?
Right, so my understanding is the Durham Energy Committee doesn't have any power, but we can influence the planning board that does have some power to help influence that, right? Is that
We don't have any jurisdiction inside the buildings.
so who has that power?
Building code.
Okay, so it'd have to go through the building code.
The best we have is
So
the
that's,
energy
and that's the
checklist.
state, so the state
Right.
has the problem.
Yeah.
It's-
We're legally not allowed to.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. Go ahead, Andrew, sorry.
What are the buildings? I mean, what's at stake in terms of fossil fuel use and things?
Riverwoods is what, assisted living, right?
Right. Are they're residences?
So there's going to be, actually it's 4 buildings, so it's going to be 2 buildings for residents, and then they're
2
adding
accessories.
50 or 60 things, a small, like, community center building,
Gotta go
and
back.
a garage.
Okay. And do they have a central
Kitchen.
heat, HVAC kind of thing? Or
I don't know
Don't
what's
know.
inside the buildings.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
if any of the utilities that's outside the buildings, I can see that, because I have the site plan.
Yeah.
But that, other than that, once you get into the building, it's a black box.
Yeah, okay.
This was the problem we ran into with
Install
Technology
parking.
Drive. Like, we knew they were
29
gonna be
units
using a
and
ton of
3
power,
floors.
but we couldn't say anything about it.
I think they have air source heat pumps on the roof.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Good.
26
Just
units
full
on the 3
disclosure, I
floors, so
live in
26
there,
units.
Well, that's good, so you get inside knowledge there.
That they're building.
Well, so I think you're bringing up a
Not
good point, though. So our climate action plan has an objective that we have no way to actually achieve without voluntary action by new builders, right? So maybe the best we can do, right, I mean, except for the state level, but the state level won't meet our plan objective, right? I don't know how far it'll go, but maybe it's the ability to share with not the planning board, but share with the builders, this is our objective. If you're feeling altruistic, help us reach our objective, but I don't know how far that'll go.
Can we do any incentives along
Yeah.
tax rebates or any of that kind of stuff?
Outside of my,
In the town?
We do it for
They're
solar.
a
The
nonprofit,
last thing we need is.
so they're already working on a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, so we can't really give them a tax abatement.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
The fact that they, it's a negotiation just to get them to pay anything.
They're a nonprofit and,
They are set up as a,
501c3.
yeah, something like that.
oh, and as a nonprofit, they don't have to pay a tax.
They're tax exempt on
Right.
the surface, yeah.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Just any nonprofit that works.
Just like UNH.
yeah.
Or a church.
If we could, let's crack open the EV ordinance. Mike, do you mind helping to lead this discussion a little bit with, it'll be your
Yeah,
swan
sure.
song?
So we, small group meeting, and we're looking over the thing. We actually met to discuss presentation process for the planning board in terms of key talking points and stuff that we wanted to plan on hitting. But also because this sort of coincided with the current federal administration's change in the incentive program for EVs, which will be ending in little more than a month. Also just sort of thought through again in terms of the impact of what our anticipated adoption rate was for EVs and how that might be affected. And we also had reached out and had conversations with 2 different electrical contractors with regards to sort of a model project to get their input. One of them actually gave me a number. The other one never got back to me with a number, but just sort of gave some thoughts. And so one of the things that came up, impact that we changed, was the issue of we had the installed EV parking spots where everything's set up and you get a charger, prepared and ready. So we were looking at some spots would just have underground conduit fed to the location of the parking spots, and others would actually be ready, having the circuit breakers in the panel and the actual conductors run through the conduit, and you'd be terminated in something that was basically ready to install a charger, just attached onto a stanchion or something. And thinking through that some more in terms of the cost factor, because of what, everything's going up, copper prices particularly, as well as what may be happening in terms of the adoption rate of EV. Inclusion of the small group and what's in the revised proposal that I sent to everybody on Saturday was to change that to make a number of spots that would have been ready with the conductors installed, back that out and just put conduit down. So with the conduit down, you can pull the cables later, but at least you've done the dirty work, literally, digging in the dirt. And it would be less of a financial burden for the person doing that for a project initially. And again, with the adoption rates probably slowing down somewhat for a while, you probably don't need as many ready necessarily as quickly as you might have otherwise. But regardless of that, whatever that is, because I've just was telling Mike earlier that look at this report today from Bloomberg is saying that, yeah, it might slow it down a couple of years, but the momentum is there still. So the analysts feel that it's still going to wind up the same endpoint, maybe just a couple of years delayed. So that was the main change that we made to the thing, and in part of that, then it just sort of led to revising the definitional part for the prepared and ready spots. And as I was saying earlier, it's like every time you read this, there's new things you see. We should have done this or could have done that a little different, better. So I just put a few things in there with regards to minimum required by code at time of application. So we were citing 40 amperes as a minimum, which seems like an industry standard type thing, but when I talked to one of the electricians, he's saying he always puts in 50 amps, and that seems to be the de rigueur thing now with some of the new chargers. So leave it as the 40 as a minimum or required by code at time of application. So there's going to be an electrician involved, and they're going to recommend to somebody what they should put in anyway. And just to clarify that. And
Mike, maybe just like using the so buildings going up, new construction, X number of employees, X number of residents. There's a little calculator in there, and we say, okay, there's really 2 types of they're
installed,
like ready to use and charge,
right?
Or conduit.
Or
conduit,
just the conduit.
Yeah.
Right.
No wire in it, just conduit.
Which we call prepared.
Yes.
Or ready.
So we had prepared spots, had a spot in the panel for a 40 amp branch circuit, and the code compliant conduit pathways, and that's it. Then the ready spot has the conductors, the actual circuit breaker, and the terminal package piece above ground that would have a NEMA certified box to install a charger to.
Yep.
So just again, a framework thinking around the example. So we still have the 3 definitions, but we're only
Right, we kept those definitions, and then it came into play back at the last section under permitted substitutions in section 7, where we had initially said that if you increase the number of installed spots, you got to take off that from the prepared or ready spots, and I left it in as at some point where if you had actually put in a ready spot, deduct that also. So the ready spot definition still is worth keeping into the.
Yeah, essentially what it does is it gives the planning board the ability to say, okay, if you guys don't want to run conduit for, say, 16 total spots, you got to give us 8 to have the wires all ready to go and everything set up, if you don't want to do all that work. So it's like, it's a way to, within the site plan regulations to kind of
Yeah, keep the definition.
figure out what works for the situation.
Yeah, keep the definition handy for that type of use. So the main thing then was to convert the language in all those different applications based upon multifamily, institutional, whatever, to just make them prepared spots and eliminate the ready spot percentage in that regard. And then the other thing which I just picked up, which was really a technicality that I just was an oversight previously, under Section 5, Commercial, Retail, and Other Institutional Construction, that category included rooming or boarding houses, fraternities, sororities, which are residential in nature, and we just talked about basing the calculated parking space required based on employees, and I added, and residents excluding visitors and customers. So there's 3 categories of buildings that actually would have residents in there.
Oh, the town regs don't classify sororities and fraternities that way, because sometimes they are not considered residential places.
Well, we lump them under the
They're-
commercial, retail, and other institutional
Yeah,
construction.
they fall into the other institutional.
So I just wanted to make sure that the way we had lumped them, we still recognize that if they're residents, we count the residents.
Oh, I misheard. Okay, so it's correct. Got it.
Yeah. So it probably should have been there all along, basically.
So open discussion on those changes.
Yep.
So, again, it's somebody kind of taking still three definitions, but the calculation is really only applying to 2, right? Like ready to charge or conduit only, right? I can't remember.
The hole's there.
The hole's there. So discussion. Anybody, we're making it a little simpler, hopefully, is part of the goal, and adjusting to kind of the current climate.
I just have a question. When you were writing this ordinance, did you assume a certain EV adoption rate?
I mean, we looked at a number of different studies that were out there looking at what, had been set up in terms of assumed adoption rate based upon the rate of growth that has been taking place. But what we're saying now is recognizing that with removing the incentives, it's likely the adoption rate somehow, to some extent, although one obviously can't, until there's a history over the next year, say what that. I had just got a study today that I looked at that was from Bloomberg analysis, and it was actually a former GM that wrote the article, basically suggesting that because there are more lower cost EVs now becoming available to people to purchase, that may offset the lack of the $7,500, because what used to be $65,000 sort of as a minimum is now going to be probably be lower cost vehicle, so that will help the adoption rate. And also the predicted time frame to when EVs will be equal to or essentially competitive with gasoline powered is probably going to be sooner, because of certain battery technologies and also just the numbers of models that are being introduced as more smaller EVs that aren't geared for the luxury audience, which is what a lot of the first American ones were.
Also, any assumed micro socioeconomic rate for Durham would inherently be very different from any macroeconomic EV adoption rate you could actually get a number for.
Right.
Because, our little town is weird. Always will
Well,
be.
it's a little bit more greener town than the average.
Should be our tagline.
We're a bit different.
So anybody not comfortable with these changes or have suggestions of modifying any of the language?
No, on the contrary, I think it's really smart. Keep the prepared piece. That's the big lift. Get it in at the, at the time of build, and prevent the possibility that you've got equipment and materials just sitting there because adoption sort of stalled out.
It makes them do it when they pour the parking lot.
Yeah.
And that's always the complaint.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
So if we're hearing consensus on those changes, the next steps would be and Mike, I know you're stepping actions up maybe with your help, or you sent it to me, so I think I have
Yeah,
it.
everybody's got it.
I have the final word, the final changes, right? All those final changes are in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, motion to accept the red lines.
Motion.
Second.
There you go.
Go.
Yeah, you gotta call him.
Oh, sorry, names. Go ahead, Malcolm, I'll start with you.
Malcolm, I.
Mike, aye.
Steve, aye.
Matt,
What's eyesight?
Mike Klein, aye.
I approve. Well,
I approve but abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Andrew Coppins, aye.
Steve Fellows, aye.
All right, great. Do I need to do this?
It's accept
No,
it.
that's just for,
You don't need
that's just
to-
for opening and closing.
It's mostly just opening and closing.
Or for when you have the room's out of
Disruption.
control and you need to get their attention.
I did it sometimes ironically, and don't let that throw you off.
Okay, so with that behind us, so the next steps would be to attend the planning
Yeah.
board in September.
15th?
Yeah,
September 15th, right? What was it in September?
Whatever that second Wednesday is.
Yeah.
Okay, second Wednesday.
I will go, and I think you were my backup.
Yeah, I'll go.
And anybody else can come too, but I think we'll go to present this, the reasoning behind it, why we think it's a good idea, and then, we'll leave it in the hands of the planning board, right? That's the next step.
I would offer to go for moral support or whatever, but I will not be in the country that.
There you go.
Roger that. It's all good. You did
That's
the
why you
hard work.
believe it.
No.
So
Days for.
we're pretty close to getting this over the line, so we should, all of us deserve a
Yeah.
round of
Yeah,
applause. We're
sure.
talking
It's
about
pretty
this
much
for-
a year, right, boys?
No, you haven't got over the line. You're just getting up to the line.
Yeah.
No, what you're
Scrimmage.
doing is you're getting ready to present the game plan to the team,
There you go.
who's then going to drop it and rip it to pieces.
There you go. Well, and we're expecting changes, right? And that's what we want, right? We want this iterative
Actually, I
process.
think you'll get a lot fewer changes with this version than you would have the earlier one.
Yeah. I think the earlier one
Well, when you
we
see,
wanted a lot.
I will send the clean copy to everybody. I didn't because I just figured it'd be better to see the red line part. But yeah, it makes it shorter, tighter,
Yeah.
and it will be a little less expensive
Easier
for
to
everybody.
comprehend, so
Yeah.
you'll probably save 1 or 2 meetings of planning boards just trying to get their head around it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 50%
Good.
less. Wait a minute.
Yeah. Okay. I won't add any more comments.
You know all the holes. Don't tell anyone else.
No. I was saying in terms of Ryan.
Two topics remain on our agenda,
Yeah.
Durham Day and then CPCNH from Steve here. Durham Day, what is, when,
Yeah,
is
so
it
I screwed up.
is it Thursday?
It is,
Yeah.
and
Thursday.
when you Google Durham Day,
2012 shows up.
yes, and that threw me off repeatedly. I like started a job, and then it came around this last week, and I was like, oh crap.
Yeah. So what's the plan? We got, in 2 days, do we have?
So I'll tell you my plan. Tell you what I'm planning on doing. I double checked. I made sure we had a spot. I've got tables. I've got the old signs. I'm only going to use the ones that make sense. Like some of them are like dated graphs and stuff, so I'm just not going to use them. And then what I was planning on doing is bringing like a pile of note cards and really just like trying to ask people like what energy issues are they interested in, and then what kind of heat are you using, and like do you like it, and are you considering changing it, and just seeing what kind of like responses we get. And other than that, I think information about CVCNH being available to talk about EVs, stuff a few of us have done a number of times before. I think we can like kind of wing it on that front, and have it more be about generating interest and seeing what people want to talk about.
What's the actual hours?
It's 5:30 to 8,
So it's in the evenings, yeah. Are others?
but
able-
it's like on the street this time, which is nice.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that is nice. Are others able to join at some point too?
I had volunteered, I got pulled out of town for work, so I sent
Okay.
Matthias
Yeah,
a note.
you're good.
Unfortunately, sorry about that. So,
Okay. You feel good?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be fine. Anyone else wants to show up, please come on by.
I think I can show up for some of it.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No one has to stay the whole time.
Are you
What?
sure in the hours now? Did they change it again? Because I
It's
thought it was
5:30
three-
to 8.
It is.
Yeah,
5:30. Okay, so originally it was
I
like
had to go
3:30 or
and check
something.
the Friday
I know.
updates
I was wondering if they
announcement.
were going to change it around.
Yeah.
5:30 to 8.
And I mean, watch a thunderstorm come in and we'll all get Well, I'll get an email on Wednesday.
No, just smoke.
We had that a
Just
few years
smoke.
ago.
Yeah, just the general haze. But that can cloud seed every once in a while.
Sorry, Malcolm, I didn't see your hand. Go for it.
No, that's fine. Regarding CPC and H, do they have anything like a handout or something we can just print and have to hand someone a sheet? Oh, you didn't know about CPC? Well, take a look at this. This kind of summarizes.
Yeah, I was gonna heckle. I was gonna ask you for some stuff.
I can find something. I mean, we have some postcards, but they're kind of dated, from way back. So let me see what I can put together for a handout.
Yeah.
One pager.
Turns out in my new job, I'm now developing one of CBCNH's next solar arrays in Hinsdale. So
Nice.
With the Poverty Plains? No, what? Oh, is that in Hinsdale?
that's my company. No, the one after Poverty Plains.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard about that one even yet. So okay.
Well, it's just started. So.
Oh, nice.
Any questions about Durham Day? Malcolm, I'm not glossing. So Steve's gonna, I don't know if you heard it, but he's pamphlets, but that also tees up, Steve, your update on CPCNH kind of nicely.
I think we do have a poster in there. Not sure.
Okay. Yeah, so I did send out something this afternoon, so there should have been something in your email. If you didn't, I hope the exploder is working, right?
The distribution list, I
distribution
do
list.
need to check, because you were saying the website's not updated too, so I can take that as an action.
How about the minutes? I sent that directly to just the single email distribution list. Did everybody
Yeah, that came out.
Did everybody get that?
I don't know that Steve would have gotten it, and I don't know if Paul, you got it.
Oh, right. It's obviously it's going to get to it.
Yeah, I don't think the new members would have gotten that.
Okay.
So, anybody, who is the point of contact for the distribution list? Who's the
I've always
techni-
been to
tech-
Craig Stevens, but I don't know if that's right anymore. I think we have a tech.
I can email
I-
Karen and.
I think we have an IT person now that is technically.
Okay,
I could look it up.
I'll take that, I'll take that action.
Okay.
Craig is back as of today.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, Craig
Okay.
is back. Okay.
So I'll reach out to get the distribution list updated and the website updated. And then we can start relying on that more. All right, Steve, floor is yours.
Okay, so the big news from CPCNH is that it's a start of another rate period, which just started in August, and the rates have gone up. If you saw the handout, I don't know, no, you probably can't see this on the screen anywhere, but these are the increase in rates of all the utilities, including CPCNH. So we're kind of in the middle of the pack here in terms of how much we had to increase our rates because the market, the cost of energy is still high. We obviously have to play in the same market as everybody else. So it's not a good story from that point of view. But the other thing that's going on is the whole industry in New Hampshire is changing in terms of the PUC has allowed the other utilities to start buying power in different ways. It used to be they had to buy 100% of their power ahead of time, which enabled them to lock everything down, but it also meant they didn't get the opportunity for price changes with market fluctuations. Prices went down, they were already locked in. So that was kind of the old process. They've been looking to modernize. Or CPC&H came on the scene. We were going to start out with a new process where we were able to combine longer term, shorter term portfolio type analysis to go into the marketplace and get more competitive rates. So our rates were very competitive from the beginning. You to track where we are, and so now it's much tighter pricing each quarter or each pricing period than it was 3 years ago when we started. So now it's also a little because you never quite know what the weather's going to do, what international things are going to drive prices up. So you set your rates for the next, if you bet wrong, the following 6 months, you got to make up for what you didn't collect. So the utilities are doing that now. They had the same cold winter that everybody had. Nobody anticipated it as much. So the utilities are raising rates partly to cover what they didn't collect last period. we're doing the same thing. We depleted our reserves in order to cover, the cost of energy for the long, cold winter. And so now we're re-establishing our reserves. So that's kind of a short story about why rates are still up or going up. It's kind of a general thing in the marketplace. Nobody wants to see it, but so there's a lot of words in here explaining that, but I was just trying to cover it generally. Some of the good news was that the state did prevent the utilities from pushing around the costs onto other customers. If they undercollected with residential, they were going to try to push other customers like CPC and H customers and try to collect some of that underrun, from people that weren't even involved in their pricing. So that was really cost shifting onto customers that weren't even involved. So thankfully the PUC decided, no, you can't do that. So you have to go back to the same customer base that you undercharged to recollect, which only makes sense, but when has the government made sense? So CPC&H has been doing a lot of improvements over the last 6 months to tighten up the process around how do you set your prices. We have a load forecast model that's doing a much more accurate job. As you can imagine, you've got all out there. You have some history about what their loads have been. Then you've got weather forecasts. You've got all sorts of things that feed into this. So they've been really improving that forecasting model. Similarly, on the payment side, I can't imagine a business that could be any more complicated than you buy your power 6 months ahead of time, you bill for the power a month at a time after you deliver it, you collect another month before you get the money in, and you still have true-ups that are going on in this process for 4 and 8 months afterwards. So, a lot of upfront cost. The revenue comes in over time. Trying to keep all the books straight, it's crazy. So they have new, what they call a cash flow model, which helps, in more detail figure out these points. So you see these spikes about, here's a spike where money came in, here's a spike where money went out, and this is again a big improvement that we hope will make a difference in how we hit the mark better in the future. And one thing that has changed this time around, which probably wasn't apparent from the price stuff that went out, is we're now doing what they call cost of service pricing. So in the previous years, CPC&H always had one price for all New Hampshire. It was one rate, and didn't matter what utility you were part of, we charged the same rate. Well, it turns out that different utilities don't have the same costs. So with a more accurate analysis of what it costs to actually serve each utility's customers, we then matched up that cost with what we priced at. So it's not a lot at this point, but you can see that we have a price for Eversource, we have a price for Liberty, we have a price for Unitil, and that's the way we're going to be doing it going forward. So it does give us a little more flexibility as well, but so that is a difference.
Are customers residential, or are there some commercial and industrial?
It'll be, that will apply to all residential, commercial.
And does the CPC&H have significant industrial?
We do have commercial customers. I don't know offhand what the percentage is for you. That's something we've been trying to grow.
Okay.
The last year was the first year I think we offered annual rates, year-round fixed rate, rather than every 6 months.
Not time of use. I mean, there's a
No,
lot.
not time
The
of
rate
use,
structuring for
yeah.
industrial is different than residential.
They probably restricted to certain load types.
Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to,
I
and
think-
is there an opportunity for demand response?
Yeah, but, you know, let me look that up and see. I don't believe we have a rate for, we have rates for certain of the light industrial and commercial, but I don't think we have a separate rate for, like what you're saying, heavy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look that up.
Any comments, questions on CPC and H report?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Steve. I've had a lot of folks coming to me talking about the increase
Oh, okay.
rates and everything.
Good.
A lot of concern in general, just because it's been in the news, and a lot of organizations have been trying to like figure out, you know, why this keeps happening and everything else. And I think, like you're saying, you know, it's based on the supply and what we're seeing from a federal level as well. You know, there are just so many roadblocks and everything else, and with an administration, to be honest, that's, you know, trying to push a certain agenda, it doesn't help the consumer at the end of the day. So my question to you, Steve, is I mean, we're looking here at probably about under a 4% increase per kilowatt hour here with the Granite Plus, and that's where a lot of folks are at. Of course, the council adopted Granite Plus to go to going forward here.
Well, let me just make sure you understand what
Yes.
that is. So the Granite Plus was only if, the council approved Granite Plus only if it was less than the Eversource
Correct.
rate.
Correct.
So right now, the default for Durham is the Granite
Is
Basic.
the Granite Plus correct?
Is the
Yes.
Granite Basic.
Granite Basic, that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure.
So my question is, you know, when we're looking at that next cycle, and I know it's hard to predict the future, for January 2026, is there any way the committee here or the council or in conjunction, we're probably going to see an increase again based on the levels in which we're working with here, I would say.
Hard to say.
I know it's hard to say, but is there a way that we can do some more informative outreach to folks to let them know? I know that there's a resource on the website, whether that's through Friday updates. Do you see that would be useful in terms of like alleviating some of the stresses that folks have around this within the community?
You know, if you've got, so how are people coming to you with questions?
Well, because they're hearing it through WMUR, they're hearing it through national news. They have folks calling them from out of state saying, we're hearing New Hampshire's energy rates are going up like ours.
And they're calling you, or they're going?
Yeah, they're emailing me, they're calling me directly,
Okay.
neighbors around me.
Okay, yeah, I mean, if you want to pass any of that on to me or something, you know, I haven't necessarily put my name, you know, on some of these, this basic report that I sent out today
This would be a better,
was basically the,
I think Clean Energy New Hampshire is probably who you want to be talking to about this, because I know they're currently putting together petitions, because this actually is a PUC level issue, and bad decisions the state government made on energy procurement. Especially, you know, even though we have some of the greatest base load in the country of nuclear power, we fill in literally all of our gaps with Canadian natural gas. And then we closed some net zero power plants we had on the north side of the state. This was completely predictable, and it was something the state government chose to do. So I think Clean Energy New Hampshire is currently put at, and they're probably looking for signatures.
Sure. Yeah.
And
Good.
I don't know if you know Chris Gogland.
I do very well, yes.
Okay.
I think he's running that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be good to hear more about.
Yeah.
Is that
Great.
That's Sam Evans Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's associated with it.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a good, I like what you're saying. So it's a PUC level problem, but we are still getting questions from residents, right? So how do we make that connection between like, that's right. So,
Yeah, and we want to divert them to things like
Right.
Clean Energy New Hampshire, who, like, that's what they're working on, and CPCNH is trying to build up their own renewable generation to, like, deal with it on a
That's what
different
I'm seeing.
level.
Like, where is that crossover of education to give out to folks that have these concerns and questions?
Yeah.
They can contact you, but if there's a resource also,
Right.
so that you're not getting inundated
Right.
with it.
So I've been reluctant to put my personal email, you know, attached to this because, one, I'm not sure if that's the right thing going forward.
That's-
Can
You know, or should there be, I don't want to put the DEC email.
No, don't do that. Is there a way though?
Everybody.
Maybe the request is, since you have the connect, you're part of the, you know, CPCNH, ask them like, hey, is there I think you just mentioned the person's name, but is there a way for people to, we can tell people even in Friday updates, like, hey, if you have questions about Durham
Yeah.
Energy, but
Direct
larger CPCNH Energy, contact this, and that will solve your problem.
Yes.
Not your problem, but like the request from the individual.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
really,
people want, yes.
really need a few people, because CPCNH does have a policy guy. I've
Yeah.
looked at something they did.
Mike,
Um,
go for it.
I guess, question for Robin.
Yes.
Are the questions you getting just about why the rates are going up, or is the implication, we're into CPCNH and the town got everybody into that, and now it's, higher than Eversource? So are they questioning CPCNH in terms of how come what happened with CPCNH, in which case,
Right.
maybe the onus needs to be on CPCNH?
Yeah, that's a different
Needs
question.
to put out
question.
something more specific about, here's what happened, here's why, stick with us, we hope to be competitive in the next cycle.
Right.
Yeah,
I-
I mean, that's what this,
Yeah, there's-
the thing that I set out for this committee was also on the Friday update a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So-
Right.
So whether anybody saw that or read it, I don't know.
That's the
but-
question, yeah.
But I could put that same material, and I was going to ask, show material also on our website, so it's there for people,
That's probably
pinpoint
helpful,
people.
as long as, I make sure with Todd that that's okay, but I don't see why it wouldn't be.
Yeah.
I'll ask him about that, because
Because it's town.
And I think a comment, say, I try to read Friday updates every week. There's weeks that I miss it.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh, of course.
busy doing stuff and you don't get back to it. So it probably pays to repeat stuff maybe 3 times over 6
Yes.
weeks so that
I mean,
people that are periodic readers get a chance to read it.
It may be worthwhile, and again, probably not for today, but for September, if we want to put out a state, like, the Durham Energy Committee still believes in CPCNH, and we, or not, but whatever, like, I mean, I think we do, but, that we're going to give it some time here to level out and see what happens, but we understand, something a little bit more succinct than the
Yeah.
very detailed write-up that you have, which is great,
Right.
but like, something that's like, we still believe in CPCNH.
I mean-
We still think community power is the way to go. Here's why, briefly, and time will tell, right? And then we'll make adjustments as needed.
I think that's to Mike's point. There's a balance there of like the concerns coming from this end and the concerns of being informed about changes and knowing when they're going to happen. So yeah, I think having that kind of resource and having that available to folks is
and September might be a good time because people will start getting their bill.
yes, correct. Yeah, that's when they
After
open it up.
A month's worth of change.
Actually, that's a great point. Yeah.
Whether people notice or not, good question, but,
Appreciate that, Steve. Yeah.
Any other questions, comments about Steve's update?
thank you.
All right, so then we have 9-ish minutes for new business. I did just want to mention, just to start on the new business side, I just handed out a second ago, but we did get invited to CPCNH's, you went, I think, last year, at the conference in Manchester.
Yeah.
Clean energy.
Clean
Clean
Energy.
Yeah, that's actually put on by Clean Energy New Hampshire.
Okay, my bad.
CPCNH has a presence there. Yeah, it's a good meeting.
So that is, I had it right. That is September 25th from 9 to 4. Malcolm, I see your hand. I'll get right there in a second. 9 to 4 at the Doubletree in Manchester, and the town has comped 2 passes, right? So part of our membership entitles us to 2 passes. If folks are interested, like let me know, and then I'll pass your names on to Karen and Todd to get you signed up.
What's the name of that conference again?
It's
It's called Local Energy Solutions.
There you go. Yep. And I think, did this email go out to the whole? I can forward this out to the whole group. Wait, did it go out? Did everybody get it?
I saw it.
I think it did.
Yeah. So if you search for LES, if you're on the distribution list, if you search for LES, you should, LES, so the Local Energy Solutions Conference, you should see it. When I send it out again, I'll send it out again. Malcolm, you had your hand up a minute ago. Do you have a question still?
Yeah, I have a question again. I don't know if this is in order for new business, but I had a question about virtual power plants. I'm wondering if this has come up at all in the discussions of this committee.
Virtual?
I know what they are. What are you wondering about them?
But I don't think they've come up.
I subscribe to the 15C newsletter, and they were mentioning an article and found another article in the MIT Technology Review on this from last year saying that these things are actually in operation in New England, quote-unquote. I'm just wondering, is this anything that might interest us as a committee?
Yeah, so there's no policy foundation for virtual power plants of any types in New Hampshire, unfortunately.
Okay.
And the ones that are in operation in Massachusetts, which that MIT pointed to, that was a pilot program. And other than that, there's a few other pilot programs in California.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our grid does not have enough communication nodes for a VPP to be viable in most of the country at this point.
But Malcolm, those
Okay.
type of topics are the type of topics that I expect would come up at this.
Yeah,
LAS
that's exactly
conference.
the right time to ask about that,
Yeah.
though.
At the conference?
Because I'm looking at the agenda. They're talking about microgrid storage for an uncertain future. You know,
Yeah.
no regrets retrofitting. Like these are the.
Oh, I
type
thought
of-
you were saying new business at the end of the meeting, because he also brought it up at the right time.
Oh, well, yeah, but I'm just saying if you're interested in going to the conference, like they may have some. I've never heard of VPPs.
Yeah, I do recommend going to that conference. It's a good one-day conference.
Okay, well, I'll check my schedule, see if I can make it.
Yeah. So this,
Thank
the email from Karen did go out to I think everybody. So Malcolm, if you don't, I think I see you on this. Yeah, I see Malcolm on the list there. If you don't have it, like let me know and I can get it to you. And if you would let me know, I don't know, the next week or two if you want to go. If we get more than 2 people, then we'll fight it out. We'll start with the 2 people.
Okay, thank you.
Any other new business?